The untold arsenal that ruled the skies when the world burned. Picture this, thousands of American aircraft, each one a piece of steel and grit, roaring into battle across two hemispheres. Some became legends. Others faded into obscurity. But every single one of them carried young men into the most brutal air war humanity had ever seen. This is their story, every fighter, every bomber, every forgotten trainer that helped win World War II. And by the end, you'll see why some of these machines were absolute game changers while others were death traps waiting to happen. Buckle up, because we're about to take you through the complete American air arsenal of the Second World War. Bell P-39 Airacobra, the fighter with the cannon in its nose. This thing had a design unlike anything else in the sky. The engine sat behind the pilot, and a massive 37mm cannon fired straight through the propeller hub like a lance. American pilots weren't crazy about it, but the Soviets? They absolutely loved this beast and racked up incredible kill counts on the Eastern Front, turning what the US considered mediocre into a legitimate tank-busting, plane-killing menace. Boeing P-26 Peashooter, America's last gasp of the old era. By the time Pearl Harbor happened, this little fighter with its open cockpit and fixed landing gear was a relic from another time, a biplane killer that had no business facing modern Japanese Zeros. But in the Philippines, outgunned American and Filipino pilots flew these obsolete machines into hopeless battles anyway, fighting with everything they had even when they knew the odds were stacked against them. Brewster F-2A Buffalo, the Navy's chunky disappointment. This was supposed to be the hot new carrier fighter, America's first monoplane naval interceptor. Instead, it turned into a flying coffin in the Pacific, too slow and too heavy to dance with the nimble Japanese Zero. But here's the twist. Finnish pilots in the frozen north turned this supposed failure into an ace-maker, proving that sometimes it's not the plane, it's the pilot behind the stick. Curtiss P-36 Hawk, the almost great fighter that time forgot. This sleek machine represented America's leap into modern fighter design, and it actually performed pretty well when the French flew it during the desperate days of 1940. But by the time the US entered the war, it was already yesterday's news, relegated to training duties and far-flung colonial outposts where the fighting was less intense. Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, the scrappy underdog that refused to quit. When America got sucker-punched at Pearl Harbor, this was the plane holding the line. It couldn't climb like a Zero, couldn't turn like a Zero, but it was tough as nails and could dive like a meteor. The Flying Tigers in China painted shark teeth on its nose and used hit-and-run tactics to terrorize Japanese pilots who thought they owned the sky. Grumman F-4F Wildcat, the stubborn little fighter that wouldn't die. Slower than the Zero, less maneuverable than the Zero, but built like an absolute tank. American carrier pilots learned to use its toughness and superior diving speed to survive those brutal early Pacific battles when we were getting our teeth kicked in at every turn. Grumman F-6F Hellcat, the plane that broke Japan's back in the air. This thing was basically a Wildcat on steroids. Faster, stronger, easier to fly. The kill ratio speaks for itself. 19 Japanese planes destroyed for every Hellcat lost. 19-1. That's not a dogfight, that's a massacre. And it happened because American engineers finally built a fighter that could beat the Zero at its own game. Lockheed P-38 Lightning, the twin-tailed devil that hunted across two oceans. With its distinctive fork-tail design, this long-range escort fighter was the only American fighter that stayed in continuous production from the day Pearl Harbor burned until Japan surrendered. It carried pilots deep into enemy territory, protected bomber formations, and became the mount of America's top aces who racked up incredible kill counts in both theaters. Lockheed P-322 Lightning, the export version nobody wanted. Britain and France ordered these stripped-down Lightnings before the war, but then France fell and suddenly America was stuck with a bunch of downgraded fighters. They got pressed into service anyway because when you're desperate, you fly what you've got. North American P-51 Mustang, the long-range assassin that changed everything. Early versions were decent, but when American engineers married the Mustang's sleek airframe to the British Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, they created arguably the finest piston engine fighter ever built. Suddenly, American bombers had an escort that could follow them all the way to Berlin and back, and the Luftwaffe started dying in droves over their own homeland. Northrop P-61 Black Widow, the night hunter with radar eyes. This big, black, twin-engine beast was America's first purpose-built night fighter, and it needed a crew of 3 to operate all that cutting-edge radar equipment. When enemy bombers tried to sneak through the darkness, the Black Widow was waiting, invisible and lethal. Republic P-35, the stepping stone nobody remembers. This all-metal fighter gave American pilots valuable experience with modern designs before the war exploded, and while it never became famous, it paved the way for what came next, the legendary Thunderbolt. Republic P-43 Lancer, the high-altitude interim fighter that bridged the gap. Many of these ended up in China, where they held the line and gave Chinese and American pilots a fighting chance until the more capable P-40s could arrive in theater. Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, affectionately called the Jug, because it looked like a flying milk jug. This beast was massive, heavy, and absolutely indestructible. It couldn't turn worth a damn, but it could dive like a meteor, absorb punishment that would shred other fighters, and when it turned its 8.50 caliber machine guns on ground targets, it became an absolute terror, destroying tanks, trains, and troops with devastating effectiveness. Seversky P-35, the innovative design that modernized America's fighter force. This pre-war machine helped the Army Air Corps transition away from biplanes into the age of sleek, all-metal monoplanes, and while it didn't see much combat, its influence echoed through everything that followed. Vought F-4U Corsair, the whistling death with the bent wings. That distinctive inverted gull wing design wasn't just for looks. It allowed the Corsair to mount an enormous propeller while keeping the landing gear short enough for carrier operations. Once pilots figured out how to safely land this hot rod on a pitching carrier deck, it became one of the fastest, deadliest, and most iconic fighters of the entire war. If you're enjoying this deep dive into history, hit that subscribe button and stay with us. There's so much more to uncover. Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, the 4-engine legend that could take a beating and keep flying. These silver giants flew in massive formations over Nazi-occupied Europe, and the stories of shot-up fortresses limping home with engines dead, half the crew wounded, and massive holes in the fuselage became the stuff of legend. The Germans threw everything they had at these bombers, and the fortresses just kept coming. Consolidated B-24 Liberator, the workhorse that everybody forgets. More of these were built than any other American aircraft of the war. More than the Fortress, more than the Mustang, more than anything. It could carry more bombs farther than the B-17, though it wasn't quite as tough. Still, it got the job done across every theater, from Europe to the Pacific to North Africa. Boeing B-29 Superfortress, the technological marvel that ended the war. This pressurized, long-range heavy bomber was years ahead of anything else in the sky, and it was this aircraft that carried the atomic bombs to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Beyond those 2 infamous missions, B-29s firebombed Japanese cities into ash and rubble, systematically destroying Japan's ability to wage war. Douglas B-18 Bolo, the pre-war medium bomber that was obsolete before the first shot was fired. Too slow, too vulnerable, it quickly got shuffled off to coastal patrol and transport duties where it wouldn't get pilots killed quite as easily. Douglas B-23 Dragon, the improved version of the BOLO that still wasn't good enough for combat. It found a niche as a fast transport for executives and high-ranking officers flying across the continental United States, basically serving as a military business jet before jet engines existed. Martin B-26 Marauder, nicknamed the Widowmaker, because it killed so many pilots during training. This medium bomber required high landing speeds that could be unforgiving to inexperienced crews. But once pilots mastered its quirks, the Marauder became incredibly effective and tough, with one of the lowest loss rates of any American bomber by war's end. North American B-25 Mitchell, forever famous for Jimmy Doolittle's audacious raid on Tokyo. This versatile medium bomber could do it all: high-altitude precision bombing, low-level shipping attacks, even nose-mounted cannons and machine guns for devastating strafing runs. Crews loved its reliability and toughness, and it served with distinction in every theater. Lockheed Ventura, developed from a civilian airliner design. The British Royal Air Force used these for patrol and bombing missions, and later the U.S. Navy adopted them as patrol bombers for hunting submarines and protecting shipping lanes across vast ocean expanses. Douglas A-20 Havoc, the nimble light bomber that excelled at everything. Fast, maneuverable, and deadly, it served as a night intruder sneaking behind enemy lines, a ground strafer shredding enemy columns, and a precision bomber across every theater of the war. Douglas A-24 Banshee, the Army's version of the Navy's famous Dauntless dive bomber. Unfortunately, without fighter cover and up against Japanese air superiority in the early Pacific battles, these planes suffered horrific losses, particularly during the desperate fighting in the Dutch East Indies when everything was falling apart. Douglas A-26 Invader, the late-war light bomber that arrived just in time to show everyone how it should be done. Fast, heavily armed, and versatile, it proved so effective that it kept flying in American service for decades after World War II ended, seeing action in Korea and even Vietnam. Martin, Maryland, the light attack bomber that America sent to its allies. France and Britain put these to good use in North Africa and the Mediterranean, using them for reconnaissance and precision strikes during the early desert campaigns against Rommel's Afrika Korps. Martin, Baltimore, the upgraded evolution of the Maryland. Tougher and more reliable, it became a workhorse for British and Commonwealth forces flying grueling missions across the scorching Mediterranean theater, where heat and dust destroyed engines almost as fast as enemy fire. North American A-36 Apache, the dive bomber version of the legendary P-51 Mustang. With added dive brakes and bomb racks, this ground attack variant saw extensive use in North Africa and the Mediterranean, delivering precision strikes against German and Italian positions before the standard Mustang took over the skies as a pure fighter. Northrop A-17, the sturdy pre-war attack plane that was outdated before the shooting even started, quickly declared obsolete. It spent the war training pilots and gunners rather than facing enemy fire, which probably saved a lot of lives. Vultee Vengeance, the dedicated dive bomber that America built but barely used. The Royal Air Force and Royal Australian Air Force, however, put it to work in Southeast Asia, diving through tropical storms and Japanese flak to hit targets in Burma and the surrounding jungles. Curtiss SB-2C Helldiver, nicknamed the Beast, and not in a good way. This carrier-based dive bomber was powerful but plagued by handling problems, structural issues, and reliability nightmares when it first entered service. By late in the war, most of the bugs were worked out, but pilots never fully trusted it the way they trusted the plane it replaced. Douglas SBD Dauntless, the dive bomber that turned the tide at Midway. When American dive bombers plunged through the clouds on June 4, 1942, and caught 4 Japanese carriers with their decks full of fueled and armed aircraft, they changed the course of the entire Pacific War in 5 devastating minutes. This plane's pinpoint accuracy made it the most successful Allied dive bomber of the conflict. Douglas TBD Devastator, the tragic torpedo bomber that was obsolete and deadly slow by 1942. At the Battle of Midway, entire squadrons of Devastators lumbered toward Japanese carriers at barely 100 miles per hour, and Japanese fighters massacred them. Out of 41 Devastators launched that day, only 6 survived. The Navy immediately pulled them from service, but not before they'd become flying coffins for far too many brave air crews. Grumman TBF Avenger, the rugged torpedo bomber that replaced the doomed Devastator. Reliable, tough, and powerful, the Avenger became the Navy's primary carrier-based attack aircraft for the rest of the war, sinking ships, submarines, and delivering devastating strikes across the Pacific. Vought SB-2U Vindicator, the pre-war scout bomber that saw limited early action. It flew at Midway in small numbers before being quickly replaced by more modern dive bombers that could actually survive in combat. Boeing 314 Clipper, the luxurious flying boat that war turned into a transport. These massive civilian airliners were requisitioned and converted to carry military personnel and cargo across the Atlantic and Pacific, providing vital long-distance logistics when every mile mattered. Consolidated PBY Catalina, the slow, ungainly, absolutely indispensable patrol bomber that seemed to be everywhere. Too slow to fight, too tough to kill easily, the Catalina flew endless patrols hunting submarines, rescued downed aircrews from shark-infested waters, and provided reconnaissance across oceanic expanses where nothing else could reach. Consolidated PB-2Y Coronado, the massive 4-engine flying boat that hauled cargo and personnel across the vast Pacific. When you needed to move critical supplies or high-ranking officers thousands of miles across open ocean, the Coronado got the job done. Consolidated PB-4Y-2 Privateer, the single-tail evolution of the B-24 Liberator, redesigned specifically for long-range maritime patrol. The Navy used these to hunt Japanese submarines and shipping across the Pacific's endless blue expanses. Grumman Dolphin, the small amphibian that handled coastal patrol and light utility transport early in the war. Not glamorous, but necessary for the countless unglamorous missions that had to be flown every single day. Grumman J-2F Duck, the reliable biplane amphibian that saved lives. Widely used for air-sea rescue, this tough little plane plucked down pilots from the ocean, towed targets for gunnery practice, and handled coastal patrol when needed. Grumman J-4F Widgeon, the smaller twin-engine amphibian that served as a light utility transport and subhunter along the American coastline, protecting shipping from German U-boats that prowled dangerously close to shore. Grumman JRF Goose, the larger predecessor to the Widgeon. This successful twin-engine amphibian served extensively with the military and Coast Guard, proving that sometimes the most valuable aircraft aren't the fighters or bombers, but the workhorses that keep everything else moving. Hull PH, the large Coast Guard patrol flying boat derived from earlier naval designs. It served throughout the early war years, patrolling American waters and hunting for enemy submarines trying to disrupt shipping. Martin PBM Mariner, the twin-engine patrol flying boat that became essential in the Battle of the Atlantic. These planes flew endless, exhausting patrols hunting German U-boats, and their presence helped turn the tide in the crucial fight to keep supply convoys flowing to Britain. Naval Aircraft Factory N3N, the bright yellow biplane primary trainer affectionately called Yellow Peril. This rugged, forgiving trainer taught thousands of future naval aviators the basics of flight, and despite its nickname, it was actually quite safe and reliable. Beechcraft C-45 Expediter, the military version of a civilian light transport. Fast and reliable, it served throughout the war as a utility aircraft and liaison plane, shuttling personnel and small cargo where they needed to be. Bud RB-1 Conestoga, the unusual transport built largely from stainless steel. With its large clamshell cargo door, it could swallow vehicles and equipment easily, though it never achieved widespread use. Cessna C-165 Airmaster, the small civilian aircraft pressed into military service when America was scrambling to build its forces. Not designed for war, but it did its part during the desperate early buildup. Consolidated C-87 Liberator Express, the transport conversion of the B-24 bomber. When you absolutely had to move heavy cargo across an ocean, these converted bombers provided essential long-range logistics capability. Curtiss C-46 Commando, the massive, powerful twin-engine transport that became legendary for flying the Hump, the treacherous air route over the Himalayas from India to China. This was the largest and heaviest twin-engine aircraft the Allies used, and it hauled critical supplies through some of the most dangerous flying conditions imaginable. Douglas C-32, the early DC-2 airliner impressed into military service. Small numbers of these pre-war civilian planes found themselves wearing military markings and hauling military cargo when war erupted. Douglas C-47 SKYTRAIN, the absolute workhorse transport that won the war behind the scenes. Reliable, easy to maintain, and capable of operating from rough airstrips, the C-47 dropped paratroopers over Normandy, supplied isolated bases across the Pacific, flew the Hump, and performed countless other missions. Without this plane, Allied logistics would have collapsed. Douglas C-53 Skytrooper, the troop transport variant of the C-47. Fitted with bench seats instead of the C-47's large cargo doors, it specialized in moving soldiers rather than cargo, though the distinction was often minimal in practice. Douglas C-54 Skymaster, the four-engine transport for the long hauls. VIPs, critical cargo, and transatlantic routes all relied on this larger transport, which provided capabilities beyond what the C-47 could manage. Fairchild Argus, the militarized version of a civilian light plane. Primarily used in Europe for liaison and light transport, connecting commanders and moving small amounts of critical cargo or personnel. Howard G.H., the Navy's light utility transport derived from a fast civilian racing plane. When you needed to get a message or small cargo somewhere quickly, this was the aircraft for the job. Lockheed Electra, the elegant twin-engine airliner that saw limited military use as a transport and navigation trainer early in the war, before more capable aircraft took over those roles. Lockheed Lodestar, the larger, faster evolution of the Electra. It served extensively with both the Royal Air Force and U.S. military as a fast utility transport when speed mattered more than cargo capacity. Noordyne Norseman, the rugged Canadian bush plane that proved perfect for military service. High-wing design and tough construction made it ideal for transport and liaison in difficult terrain where other aircraft would never dare land. Stinson Reliant, the high-wing monoplane that filled multiple roles, light transport, ambulance for wounded soldiers, and even limited anti-submarine patrol. Not specialized, but versatile enough to be useful wherever it was sent. Lockheed Vega, the single-engine speedster known for its smooth wooden construction. Used for light transport and communications, it was fast and efficient for moving small loads quickly. Beechcraft at 7 Navigator, the twin-engine advanced trainer specifically designed to teach navigation and radio operation to future bomber crews. In the air war, knowing where you were and how to communicate could mean the difference between life and death. Beechcraft at 10 Wichita, the twin-engine trainer built primarily from wood because metal was needed for combat aircraft. It transitioned pilots from single-engine trainers to the complexity of multi-engine operations. Beechcraft at 11 Kansan, another twin-engine trainer, but this one specialized in teaching bomb aiming and gunnery to future bomber crews who would need those skills over heavily defended targets. Boeing Stearman Cadet, the primary biplane trainer for both Army and Navy. Slow, stable, and incredibly forgiving of mistakes, this open cockpit trainer gave tens of thousands of young men their first taste of flight, building the foundation for everything that came after. Cessna at 17 Bobcat, the twin-engine advanced trainer known as the Bamboo Bomber because of its partial wooden construction. It prepared pilots for the transition to combat multi-engine aircraft. Curtiss-Wright at 9 Fledgling, the demanding twin-engine trainer designed to be deliberately difficult to fly. This prepared pilots for the challenging characteristics of actual combat bombers, where mistakes could kill you and your entire crew. Curtiss-Wright SNC Falcon, the Navy's compact advanced trainer. This low-wing monoplane represented the final stage of training before pilots moved on to actual combat aircraft. Fairchild PT-19 Cornell, the simple, reliable primary trainer with an open cockpit and low-wing design. An excellent introductory aircraft that gave student pilots their first real taste of controlling an airplane. Fairchild at 21 Gunner, the unusual twin-boom trainer designed specifically for training gunners and bombardiers. Difficult to manufacture and challenging to fly, it saw limited use despite its specialized mission. Fleetwing's BT-12 Sophomore, unique as the first military aircraft built entirely from stainless steel. This experimental approach saw very limited service as a basic trainer before more conventional designs proved more practical. North American at 6 Texan, perhaps the most famous trainer of all time. Virtually every Allied fighter pilot who climbed into a Mustang, Thunderbolt, or Spitfire learned their advanced skills in a Texan first. This single aircraft type trained more combat pilots than any other, and its distinctive sound became synonymous with learning to be a fighter pilot. North American BT-9, the early basic trainer that paved the way for the legendary at 6 Texan. It provided initial combat tactics instruction and proved the basic design that would evolve into something even better. Ryan PT-22 Recruit, the popular low-wing primary trainer with a radial engine. Its distinctive sound and reliable performance made it a favorite among thousands of student pilots learning the fundamentals of flight. Vultee BT-13 Valiant, the rugged fixed-gear basic trainer nicknamed the Vultee Vibrator because of its slight instability. Despite, or perhaps because of, that characteristic, it was essential for intermediate training, teaching pilots to handle less than perfect aircraft. Piper NE-1, the first tricycle landing gear primary trainer evaluated by the Army. Produced in small numbers, it provided crucial testing data for future trainer designs, even though it never achieved widespread adoption. Aeroenca L-3 Grasshopper, one of the simple, high-wing light observation planes that proved invaluable on the battlefield. Operating from primitive dirt strips right behind the front lines, these little planes spotted artillery targets, carried messages, and provided crucial reconnaissance that helped save countless lives. Curtiss O-52 OWL, the high-wing observation monoplane built just before the war started. Too slow for modern combat, it quickly found itself relegated to coastal patrol and liaison duties where its lack of speed was less of a death sentence. Curtiss SC Seahawk, the late-war, high-performance floatplane designed to replace the aging Kingfisher. Faster and more heavily armed, it represented the cutting edge of scout plane design, though it saw limited combat before Japan surrendered. Curtiss SO-3C Seamew, the troubled scout floatplane that was supposed to replace the Seagull. Instead, it was plagued by instability and engine problems so severe that it was quickly withdrawn from operational service, proving that not every replacement is actually an improvement. Curtiss SO-3 Seagull, the reliable biplane floatplane that launched from battleships and cruisers. Primarily used for spotting naval gunfire and air-sea rescue, it was sturdy and dependable when more modern designs failed. Interstate L-6 Grasshopper, a simple two-seat, high-wing monoplane for liaison and observation. Less common than other Grasshopper variants, but it filled the same crucial role of operating close to the front lines. North American O-47, the large three-seat observation monoplane that was obsolete when the war started. It saw brief coastal patrol duty before being relegated to training, where its lack of modern performance wouldn't get crews killed. Piper L-4 Grasshopper, the most famous of all the light observation planes. Essential for low-level reconnaissance and artillery fire direction right on the front lines, these tiny aircraft operated from cow pastures and dirt roads, often under direct enemy fire, guiding artillery shells onto German and Japanese positions with devastating accuracy. Piper L-14 Family Cruiser, a slightly larger version of the famous L-4 Grasshopper. Designed to carry more personnel or equipment for liaison purposes, giving commanders more flexibility in moving people and small cargo near the fighting. Stinson L-1 Vigilant, designed for short field takeoff and landing. This aircraft provided observation and utility transport in rugged forward conditions where longer runways simply didn't exist, operating from impossibly small clearings and improvised strips. Stinson L-5 Sentinel, known as the Flying Jeep. This dependable liaison aircraft moved personnel and evacuated wounded soldiers from small improvised fields right behind the lines, saving countless lives by getting injured men to medical care quickly. Taylorcraft L-2 Grasshopper, another crucial member of the light observation fleet. Often used for reconnaissance and command transport right behind the front lines, these little planes were the eyes of the artillery and the lifeline of forward commanders. Vought OS-2U Kingfisher, the quintessential ship-based floatplane. Durable, reliable, and essential for air-sea rescue and spotting throughout the entire war, the Kingfisher launched from battleships and cruisers, rescued downed pilots from hostile waters, and spotted naval gunfire onto enemy targets. Waco CG-4A Hadrian, the most famous and widely used American transport glider. It could carry 15 troops or a jeep with a small howitzer, silently delivering airborne forces behind enemy lines during major operations like D-Day and Market Garden. No engine meant no noise, just a whisper of wind, and then suddenly Allied soldiers were on the ground behind German lines. Leister-Kaufmann TG-4, the tandem-seat training glider used to teach future cargo glider pilots the delicate and dangerous art of unpowered flight. Landing a glider loaded with troops or equipment was incredibly difficult and unforgiving. You got exactly one chance to get it right. Sikorsky R-4 Hoverfly, the world's first mass-produced helicopter. It saw limited service for reconnaissance and rescue, but its very existence demonstrated the incredible potential of rotary-wing flight technology that would revolutionize warfare in the decades to come. Sikorsky R-5, the more powerful two-seat helicopter designed for utility and rescue work. A significant leap forward from the R-4. It showed that helicopters could become genuinely useful military tools rather than just experimental curiosities. Sikorsky R-6, an improved, faster, and more stable version of the R-4. Used primarily for observation and liaison in the late war, it pointed the way toward the helicopter-dominated battlefields of Korea and Vietnam. Culver PQ-8, the radio-controlled target drone used extensively to train anti-aircraft gunners. These early pilotless aircraft represented a crucial step in autonomous flight development and gave gunners realistic practice shooting at maneuvering aerial targets. Culver PQ-14, a larger, faster, and more advanced radio-controlled target than the PQ-8. The improved realism of shooting at these drones made anti-aircraft training far more effective, preparing gunners for the real thing. Interstate TDR, the early naval radio-controlled assault drone. These primitive flying bombs were tested for use against heavily defended Japanese targets, essentially kamikaze attacks without the human pilot. Though they saw limited operational use, they foreshadowed the drone warfare that dominates modern conflict. From the legendary Mustang to the forgotten pea-shooter, from the mighty Superfortress to the humble grasshopper, every single one of these aircraft played its part in the greatest air war in history. Some became icons. Some were forgotten. But together, they helped win World War II and changed aviation forever. Tell us which of these aircraft you found the most dangerous.